Hey students, this is another video where I am not going to require that you take notes. You can either use the digital version of the notes that's posted to Google Classroom. You can print out that version, just remember you need to print it from something that's not a Chromebook. Or you still can take notes if you would prefer. I'm just not going to require that you upload a picture of them to get credit on this assignment. So today's section is 8.2, surface area of prisms. And our learning target is I can use nets to find the surface area. Capital S, capital A stands for surface area of prisms. So we have two vocab terms to start us off today. The first one is surface area of a solid. Surface area of a solid. If we're expected to find surface area, we need to know what it is. Surface area of a solid is the sum, remember sum means addition, the sum of all areas of all of the faces. So, for example, let's say I have my trusty cube here. The surface area of this cube is if I find the area of all of the faces of all these different squares and I add it all up. That is surface area. It's the area of the whole surface, all the shapes that make up the whole surface. Our learning target said we were going to be using nets to find the surface area. So let's talk about what a net is. A net is a 2D representation of a solid. So it's as if we have our cube and we take some scissors and we make some cuts on the cube and we unfold it and lay it flat. That is what a net is. So I'm going to write down unfolding it. Unfolding it. Okay. So first we're going to talk about rectangular prisms. And I actually have an example here of the net of a rectangular prism. So first of all, a rectangular prism is when we have two rectangles that are parallel to each other. They're across from each other. And then we have a bunch of other rectangles connecting them. So it looks like this. If we unfold it, remember a net is unfolding it, we get this flat shape like this. We can see that it takes care of all the different faces, the top, the bottom, the back, the front, and both sides. So we are going to be using the net, the unfolded version of our solid, in order to find the surface area. So we will be finding the area of each of the faces and then adding them all up to get the total surface area. On your assignment, I will provide all of the nets for you. I am not going to require that you draw these. I will give you both the figure and the net. That way you have it ready to go and you can just use the net to find the surface area. So, example 1. Find the surface area. So here is our figure. It's a rectangular prism. See, there are two rectangles, two bases that are parallel, and they're the same. And then all these lateral faces, all these other sides, are rectangles that connect those bases. We have some measurements labeled as well on here. And if we unfold this figure, we end up with a net that looks like this. So we have the top and the bottom in red, the back and the front in green, and both sides in blue. So they correspond to the colors on our original figure. So what we're going to do is we're going to go one by one, finding the area of each of these rectangles, the top, back, bottom, front, side, and side. And then we're going to add them all together to get our final surface area, the area of the whole surface. So I need to back up and remember, how do I find the area of a rectangle? The area of a rectangle is length times width. We multiply the length and the width. So let's start finding our areas. I'm going to start with the top and the bottom. So they're both in red because they are both the same rectangle. They have the same measurements. So the top, I want to find the area of the top. It's a rectangle, so I'm going to multiply the length and the width. 7 times 4. And I'm going to get 28. Remember, area is always units squared, so this is 28 inches squared. Now we're going to find the area of the bottom. The bottom is also in red because it has the same measurement. It also is 7 by 4. So we're going to do 7 times 4 to again get 28 inches squared. Let's go ahead and do the front and back now. These are both in green because, again, they are the same exact shape. They have the same measurements. So the front, we're going to multiply length and width 7 times 3 to get 21 inches squared. Then we'll do the back. The back is the same shape. It has the same measurements. So we are also going to multiply 7 and 3 to get 21 inches squared. Finally, we're going to find the area of both of the sides. Both of the sides are in blue because they have the same measurements. They are the same exact rectangle. So we're going to multiply the length and the width. 4 times 3. I know there isn't a label here, but if we look all the way over to the end, we see the 3 inches right there. So length times width, 4 times 3, which makes 12 inches squared. And the other side is the same shape, the same measurements. So 4 times 3 gives us an area of 12 inches squared. Okay, now that I've gone through, I've found the area of all the different faces, all these rectangles that make up my net. I'm going to add them all up to get my final surface area. In this section, you will be allowed to use a calculator for both the multiplication parts and the final addition at the end. So if I take my handy dandy calculator, I add all this up, I end up with 122 inches squared. And that is my final surface area, 122 inches squared. We're also going to talk about finding the surface area of a triangular prism. So the concept is still the same. We're going to find the area of all the faces and add them all up. This time we just happen to have some triangles. So here's our triangular prism. We have those 2 triangle bases, and then the lateral faces are all these rectangles. If we unfold it, we get something that looks like this right here. So our example, we're going to find the surface area. This is our triangular prism. It's all nicely labeled for us. And then here is the net of that prism. If we unfolded it, it would look something like this. Not something like this. It would look like this. So we're going to go through and find the area of each of these different shapes, each of the faces, and then add them all up. I see 3 rectangles. I already know how to find the area of a rectangle. It's length times width. What about the triangles, though? Well, we did learn this early in the year, but as a reminder, the area of a triangle is the base times the height divided by 2. So to find the area of a triangle, we multiply the base and the height, and then we divide that by 2. To give you a little bit of help as well, I know sometimes we struggle to find what the base and the height are. So when you're looking at your triangle, look for this little square. This little symbol means that this is a 90-degree or a right angle. The base and the height always form a 90-degree angle. So if we look for our little square, we will know that those 2 sides are our base and height. Okay, we can get started now. So let's start with the front and back. Let's do the front and the back. These ones are our 2 triangles. They're both in green because they have the same measurements. So since this is a triangle, I'm going to do base times height and then divide that by 2. Remember, to find the base and height, look for your little right angle symbol. I see it right there. The 2 sides that form this right angle are 5 centimeters and 12 centimeters. So those are my base and height. 5 times 12, all divided by 2. If I type that into my handy dandy calculator, I would get 30 centimeters squared. The back is the same exact triangle. It has the same measurements. So again, 5 times 12, all divided by 2, which makes 30 centimeters squared. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the sides. We're going to start with the blue side, this one here. We're going to multiply the length and width, so 13 times 8. 13 times 8, which makes 104 centimeters squared. Let's do the other side now, the yellow side. Ooh, I don't know if I have yellow. We'll write it in black and we'll put some highlighter over it. The other side, or again, rectangle, length times width, 5 times 8, which makes 40 centimeters squared. And then finally, the bottom in red, another rectangle. So we do length times width, 12 times 8, which makes 96 centimeters squared. Now that we have found the area of all these different faces, we can add them up to get our total surface area. We use our handy dandy calculator and we get 300 centimeters squared. So the total surface area of this figure is 300 centimeters squared.